pollution and climate change, medicine manipulation, genetically modified food, the destruction of wildlife, and corporate exploitation. These are all part of the new terrorism threatening our future.
Eco-Terrorism, global awakening to a world under threat. Etejah News Channel. The truth fears no questions.
Hello and welcome to Eco-Terrorism. I'm Zeinab Bailoun. Why are nature reserves important, and are we giving them enough importance in the Middle East? Joining us today in the studio is Dr. Zeinab Bailoun with a Ph.D. in Environment, Concentration, Forest Management. First of all, thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So before we continue with our discussion, let's take a quick look at this first report.
Nature reserves are areas protected from the human's abuse for their importance to preserve the wildlife, flora, fauna, or features of geological or any other special interest that is reserved and managed for conservation, study, or research. Many would ask, why are such places of a great importance to the ecosystem? Yet, few know that the more humans preserve them, the more they help animals from becoming endangered or extinct. Moreover, nature reserves help in decreasing the level of air pollution as they prevent plants and trees from being cut down. While the Middle East region is politically and socially changing, light must be shed on nature reserves as they illustrate the significance of biodiversity as well as the environment as a whole in such a shaking region. In 1975, the Jordanian authorities found the Chaumari Wildlife Reserve, the first reserve in the country. The reserve sought to create means to breed endangered species, specifically the Arabian oryx, gazelles, ostriches, and Persian onagers in their natural environment. According to the Convention on Biological Diversity, Lebanon holds many nature reserves that boast one of the highest densities of floral diversity in the Mediterranean basin. Additionally, Lebanese authorities established up to 7 natural reserves covering nearly 5% of the overall area, aiming to protect endangered species and conserve their habitats. In Syria, the situation is very confusing. 24 protected areas, which constitute 1.29% of Syria's total land area, are now subjected to severe abuse from humans due to the ongoing bloody conflict. In this regard, what are the impacts of nature reserves on environment and human beings? And what are the dangers that nature reserves in the Middle East face?
So, Dr. Boudib, can you start by telling us what exactly a nature reserve is and what role does it play?
Actually, a nature reserve is a geographically limited site that we declare it a nature reserve in a very specific objective, which is conservation, biodiversity conservation, for its flora, for its fauna, whatever. And what is most important, that nature reserves are the cornerstone for national and international conservation system. This is the main role of nature reserve, conservation.
So why is conservation important?
It is very important because if not, we are going to have a habitat loss for our flora and for our fauna. So we are going, the cycle life will be endangered. And indirectly, our human life will be in danger. So we
How
should...
exactly would this happen?
we will have less flora, we'll have less fauna, we'll have less clean water, we'll have less clean air, pollution, disease, death.
Is this the only way of going about it, by having nature reserves, or are there, is it a huge part of this process of conservation?
It is a huge part. It's not only nature reserve, it's also reforestation campaigns when you plant trees. It is also awareness. We are going to talk about awareness. It is an important part. Less human population. This is the major threat for environment and for nature reserve. I'm sorry, but I have to say it. And terrorism, if you want.
And how do you think...
the cycle, yeah.
What do you think is the best way of dealing with this?
For me, it's education and awareness. Yes, we should work on this for several sides. Not only ecological awareness, also political awareness and social awareness. Yeah.
And do you think this is happening in Lebanon? Say we focus specifically on Lebanon and the Middle East.
Yes.
What is the nature, or what is the current condition of nature reserves in Lebanon?
In Lebanon, we are working on awareness, but it's not enough. We should work more. We should include it in our schools, in the educational system. It's not included. Some private schools are trying to include it. As public school, little part in the civil society, it is included as a part. We should work also on many things like encouraging students, mainly because we have around 1 million students, to plant each year 1 million trees as the number of our students. You know, if you ask this question, we should have 20% of our country forest area. We have only 13% in 2010. If today we do the study, I'm sure it is maximum 10%, which is a very...
sad.
Exactly.
And what do you think it is exactly that we should be teaching our children about nature reserves, for example?
We should tell them the importance, why we do nature reserve. We should take them, visit those reserves to see the beauty, the importance and the role they are playing. And also we should take them to, we should show them the disadvantages of having desertification and deforestation and the advantages of the trees, because the trees play an important role ecologically, economically and socially.
Does just simply having these nature reserves guarantee that this will prevent, climate change, or that this will help in the fight against climate change, or are there more steps that the government should be taking?
Of course, we should have more steps, but at least having nature reserve, we are taking from the air the greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases are the most important gas that create climate change. They cap the heat and then reflect it back to the environment. Once you have nature reserve, you have trees. Trees are absorbing the greenhouse gas, you have less climate change. And it's not the only step, but it is a major step in fighting against climate change.
Do you think enough progress has been made on this issue?
In Lebanon, in the report you've said 7. Actually, it is till now on the site of the Ministry of Environment, but they have 11. We have 4 more reserves, so now we have 11 nature reserves. It is enough? No. But at least we have something. And we'll talk about it. The people have a major role to play in declaring and launching a nature reserve. It's not only the government.
Have you worked on such a project before?
Yes.
Can you give us an example of how it went?
Exactly.
What the process
For
was
example,
like?
in a certain area, a certain village, not only forest, it might be an island. It's not only restricted to a forest area. if you want to declare a nature reserve, you should work with the municipality. It's the main issue, it's the base. The municipality declare a legal decision, a local decision saying that we want to declare this area a nature reserve. It's the first step. Very easy. Who encourage the municipality? The people, the locals. They go to the municipality and they say we want this area a nature reserve with the criteria, the reasons why. Second step is to go to the Ministry of the Environment and fill up an application form for nature reserve. Third step, you bring an official topographic map for the site, indicating the borders. Fourth step, you ask for an expert in the environment to give you a study, ecological study, fauna, flora, the threats, why do you want to declare a reserve, and you put all the file at the Ministry of the Environment. It is the technical part. Here comes the political part, unfortunately. Political part, you have 3 steps. First step, you have to get the approval from the Minister of Environment. If it is okay, it goes to the government. They vote for it. If it passes, if it is okay, and if we have a government, it goes to the parliament. If we have a parliament, they vote. If it is okay, it is declared a nature reserve. It's an easy process if we say it, but doing it, it takes time, of course, but you need expert and you need the support of politicians for sure.
Approximately how long does this process take?
It can take 2 months and it can take 10 years. And the latest for nature reserve, one of it waited 10 years to be declared nature reserve. It depends.
And what was the condition you faced in working on this issue?
Conditions, first, getting an official map, it is difficult. Sometimes you don't have a map to locate the boundaries. Second, I didn't mention, sorry, the property ownership. It should be for the municipality. Second issue, in Lebanon, the lands are interacting between private and public. A private land is legal, you cannot declare it a nature reserve. In one case, if the owner will exactly. And this is difficult. And the third issue, it's not the approval of politicians, it is the country. You don't have government now. Sometimes they have other decision to pass it. The parliament is not gathering. So those type of daily political Lebanese problems.
So can you tell us about, for example, the forests in Lebanon and your work in this issue? Have nature reserves been declared to protect the forests, or have they not been enough?
Actually, nature reserves have been declared first to save the cedars of Lebanon. The cedars is our symbol, but it's not their surface. It's not very high. The occupation of cedars. So we have forest for conservation of Cedrus libani, the cedars. Also, we have forest for being important for their biodiversity, like Harsh Ehden. It is the most important nature reserve in biodiversity in all the Middle East. Others have been declared for their marine importance. Other forests have been declared for their biblical site. It's one of the forests, for example, that they represent the forest since the Bible. Several reasons. And mainly to protect them from the threats. Every year in September and October we have huge forest fires, destroying our green cover. So nature reserve is one of the area where the fires till now are far away. Why? Because each nature reserve has its own forest fire management plan. This is a good point for the nature reserve.
And are these management plans carried out as well as they should be? Are the teams efficient? Are they responding to such problems quickly?
Yes, the teams are good. No, our teams are professional and are good. It's the first seven reserves have been here since 10, 12 years, so it's a long time. They have experience now. Yeah.
What about the cedars? What exactly are the problems that the cedars are facing that's making it difficult for them to continue to be protected in the way that they used to be?
Actually, now they are protected, but with the time they have been cutted. It's the first problem. Second one, the reforestation of cedars is very difficult. Third issue, Lebanon now is warmer than before, and cedars like cold. They don't like warm warm temperature. So global warming is playing against the development or of cedars. Yeah, that's and also we don't have money. You know, deforestation campaign really costs lots of money. Our government maybe doesn't have money, maybe doesn't want to do this. I don't know. It's not here the question. But we need financial resources. If we got it, we can do those things. If not, it's very difficult. And especially for the cedars, it costs really too much of money. Also for the area to go there and to plant money, it's not really accessible.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boudib.
Yeah.
We'll be going off for a short break, but we'll be back. Stay tuned.
Around the world, outside the mainstream, anywhere, everywhere. A media of your land, of your creation. A new media in a new era. Will it take the lead in the future? I believe so. This is Underground.
Underground, when vague turns to clarity.
Welcome back. Before we continue our discussion, let's take a quick look at this short video that shows the repercussions of the abuse of the environment on animals. Joining us by phone today is Ms. Zeinab Farhat, an environmentalist and an activist. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So what are the possible consequences that can result from not taking care of or not creating nature reserves?
Well, definitely nature reserves are a very important space where there is the protection for the flora and the fauna and the wildlife, other than the geological features and other interests that can be important for us. If we do not protect this fauna and flora, we will definitely be losing habitat for endangered species and animals, and our biodiversity will be really going down. And of course, reserves are an important landmark for scientists and for research. So we will be losing all of these features if we do not protect and create these reserves.
So how are nature reserves and biodiversity related?
Well, definitely. Well, when you have a reserve, it's a protected space where all these the animals and the plants can live well in their natural habitat. And this is why how well with scientists they can observe this creation and this system. When and also all this can provide them with a lot of opportunities to study and to probably find cures, and it's definitely for research purposes at the most where we can take advantage of the reserves.
Mm-hmm. Let's say we look at the economic side of this issue. What are the economic costs and benefits of the creation and the upkeep of reserves?
Okay, a reserve is basically a place where it's a space where it's protected. So when we have to talk economics, the reserve economic benefit is really important. It provides employment for the people who will be researching or studying there or even protecting it. And it will definitely provide us with raw materials for studies and others. And it's a provision of medicine that we can also benefit from it. And it's also a source of energy. When we have all these materials, we can definitely be sure that we will not lose them, and we will possibly use them for other purposes.
Mm-hmm. What about the costs of these reserves?
The cost will be in protecting it and maintaining the reserve. Mm-hmm. Basically, humans are not supposed to go into the reserve unless they're supervised and the activities is well known. Mm-hmm. So probably the cost will be just to be able to monitor these activities.
Mm-hmm. So what about marine reserves? Why is it important to make the public aware of their significance?
Well, basically, the marine life is very important. It's very important because most of our food and energy and also come from the sea. Also, the oceans are very important because they can work on the climate. Mm-hmm. And so if oceans are not preserved in the ecosystem that they are right now, this can also affect on the climate. Other than the fisheries and the marine system and the marine shipping, and this is a vital point in our human life and our daily life. We have ships coming and going, we have the fisheries, we have all this, and the tourism that comes from the marine life is really important, and it generates around $20 trillion.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's enough awareness about this issue of nature reserves? Are there enough people and organizations that care and are actually trying to make a difference, or do you think that we need more?
We definitely always need more about this because there's a lot of people who don't know how important these reserves are, and they don't know how important the biodiversity of these reserves. In fact, if we lose one species, this could cause the dysfunction in the whole ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Let's say if we lose sharks, for example, in the marine ecosystem, if we lose sharks, this will disbalance all the ecosystem. The other species will become more. We will have more of other species that we cannot benefit from. These other species could eat or destroy the habitat or anything that we are capable of working with or benefiting from. Mm-hmm. So if we lose one species, it will cause a lot of dysfunction for ours. If we're going to say our lives as humans.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ms. Farhat. We'll be going back very quickly to Ms. Boudib in the studio. Can you tell us what you think of the role of the media in raising this awareness?
I think it has a very important role because now all people on TV, internet, Twitter, Facebook, and the role is for the social media is very important. Like the show, for example, it raises awareness of people. It gives them information about nature reserve, their importance. Maybe it will highlight the issue of a certain site in their village that they want to protect. And also, it plays an important role in advocacy and lobbying, I think, now, especially with the social media. The Facebook now is one of the tools that we use to raise awareness, to show people what is happening, if it is good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think the government should be playing a bigger role as well?
Yeah, I think the government should should play an important role in helping the establishment and facilitating the establishment of nature reserve, and maybe it should put an aim. For example, each year we are going to establish 2 reserves in several sites in Lebanon, and it should give us financial resources, because we need employees to manage those nature reserves. And also the universities can take care of and take advantage from those reserve in research and studies and monitoring.
Thank you, Dr. Boudib. Back to Ms. Farhat. Can you comment on what Dr. Boudib said in terms of the media and the government? What are their roles exactly?
Yes, definitely, as she said right now, that the media has a really important role to reach a huge public. We all now have Facebook or Twitter or anything related to the internet, and basically everyone has access to these tools. So if we can campaign via these tools, it's really important. So also the government has a lot of resources that can push and help activists in order to create reserves and shed awareness about them.
What impact does climate change have on nature reserves? Do nature reserves serve as some sort of buffer, for example, against the continued extreme changes that we have ahead of us?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Do you think that, what role does climate change have on nature reserves? Do you think that nature reserves are a buffer against extreme changes in terms of the climate?
Well, the reserves are very affected by the climate change. If we have a really, the climate change already has a lot of effects on the normal life, so especially in the reserves where the ecosystems are very fragile. If we, let's say, if we talk about the marine ecosystem, we have a lot of problems now that they are facing, because it's not like a piece of land where you can cut it a bit from the other oceans. It's the ocean in a whole that is affecting it. So when you have a lot of CO2 that's coming into the oceans and the temperatures that are rising, and as well as the water levels, this all can affect the marine ecosystems, especially with the fish and the plants and all that cannot adapt with these changes that are happening so fast. Also with the nature reserves that are on land, we have this problem because basically plants can move, but they can't move as fast as we can or as animals. So when they want to move, this will take millions of years for a tree to be found, let's say, in Lebanon, so we can find it in Turkey, which will be a lot difficult to manage this situation. So we can face an extinction of a species because of the climate change.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farhat, for joining us today by phone. As a final question, we'll be turning to our guest in the studio, Dr. Boudib. Can you tell us your opinion in terms of the future? Where do you think we will be going?
I think it's not only Lebanon. I will talk about the Middle East and all the world. I think if we continue like this, we are going to a catastrophe. Because we have really less environmental resources. We have people are going to other problems, political problems, economical problems, but they are forgetting the ecology and the environment. And what is the most important, that the environment is a source of economic resources. They should go there for renewable resources, renewable energy, for better management, for better health. If you have better health, you have less money, less health cost, let's say. So I think that it's not only the problem of terrorism now, it's the problem of lack of awareness. We don't care about the environment, and we are damaging our health, our future, our habitat, our children. And like you see, you put here in the report, desertification we will not have any water, we will not have any trees, and we will not have any food. I think the food security here is in big question. Yeah.
Is there a particular reserve, for example, say in Lebanon, that is very dear to your heart, that you find is very special or important to keep?
I think all the nature reserves are important, but I come from an area from Eden where we have a nature reserve. So, yani, let's say logically, I will go there. I will love this, and I will invite you all to visit this reserve, and I will be your guide if you'd like.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Dr. Boudib. Endangered species do need your help. So here are some ways that you can get involved. The first, build a bird feeder and establish a bird bath for the neighborhood birds. Plant native plants because native grasses are more likely to attract native birds and threatened species. Many community groups work on conservation activities. Do join an organization in your area and start helping. So to conclude, Thanks to Dr. Boudib for joining us in the studio and Ms. Farhat for joining us by phone. That's it for today. This was Eco-Terrorism, and I'm Zeinab Bailoun. See you next week.
Is good weather good for us? American scientists have attempted to answer the question by comparing over several months the weather conditions with the moods of a number of volunteers. The results show, as surprising as it may appear, that fine weather does not affect our morale. The idea of the benevolent sun comes from the dawn of time, as it has always enabled us to keep warm, to hunt, and to have light. For these reasons, it has been venerated by the Aztecs, the Japanese, and the Egyptians. Sun worship is featured in many civilizations. If I'm sad and it's raining, I perhaps imagine a connection between the weather and my mood more easily. But if I'm sad and the sun is shining, this is not so readily the case. On the other hand, and this is indisputable, there is a link between light and psychological well-being. Luminosity and the exposure of the retina to light clearly stimulates the brain's production of serotonin. This hormone is quite simply a mood regulator. People described as weather sensitive can sink into a depression on the first day of winter, becoming apathetic, irritable, in a bad mood. 3% of the population in France suffer from this syndrome.
Etejah News Channel. The truth fears no questions.
I am in northwest Mexico, in an inhospitable land which for many centuries has been the home of the Tarahumara Indians, a very hospitable tribe. Their ancestors came from Asia, crossing the Bering Straits. I came here on the back of a mule, the best way of traveling across the Sierra Madre. The family is very important to them, as it constitutes the social base that ensures their precarious well-being. They are strong people, accustomed to living with very little, and who value people more than things. The man with the most experience in the village is the chief, or Siriame, and he is chosen by a system of showing of hands which makes vote rigging impossible. On Sundays, he gives them a chat, and they go to see him to resolve the problems of the community. Like their ancestors, they grow maize. They don't have many resources, but they do have their own philosophy. They never tell their children off. They give them responsibilities from when they are very young, and they teach them to decide for themselves. Maize and some animals. They suffer from illnesses due to scarcity, but despite his appearance, this child is receiving treatment, as the village doctor, an affable man called Cherokee, tells me. The Raramuri marry very young, from the age of 16. And the woman calls all her children the same,